The judge's voice cuts through the room like a scalpel through tissue. Based on the evidence presented, this court finds in favor of the plaintiff. Custody of the minor children, Layla and Zoey Thompson, is hereby awarded to their mother, Harper Thompson. I can't breathe. The fluorescent lights overhead buzz with smug certainty. My hands grip the polished table, knuckles white against mahogany that costs more per square foot than my first surgical table. This isn't happening. There must be a statistical anomaly, a procedural error. Supervised visitation will be permitted twice monthly, pending completion of the court-mandated evaluation and counseling. Supervised. Like I'm dangerous. Like I haven't spent 20 years healing broken bodies, setting fractured bones with the steadiest hands in San Diego. I'm Austin Thompson, orthopedic surgeon, innovator, provider, not this defendant. My attorney nudges me as the judge asks if I understand the terms. I manage to nod, though my neck feels calcified. The room blurs at the edges. I reach for my phone, open my investment app. Numbers make sense. Numbers don't lie. If I liquidate the biotech startups, maybe pull from the offshore account. Austin, we need to go. The hallway outside is too bright, too clean. My shoes click against marble as we exit. Perfectly measured steps, 1.5 feet apart. Maintaining gait symmetry, even as my world collapses. We'll appeal, my attorney says, but her voice lacks conviction. Those allegations were completely unfounded. No evidence of neglect. Neglect. The word sticks in my throat like a bone fragment. 14-hour surgeries, missed dance recitals, postponed vacations. But I was building something, creating innovations that would change orthopedic medicine forever. My lab in the biotech park was generating patents that would secure their futures. The credit card statements didn't help, she continues. The court saw them as evidence of instability. I close my eyes briefly. The American Express Black. The Visa Infinite. Both maxed out maintaining appearances after the hospital placed me on leave. Private school tuition. Mortgage on the La Jolla house. Lease payments on the Tesla that still sits in the parking garage at work. A perfect life constructed with perfect precision, now mathematically impossible to sustain. They can't just take my daughters. My voice sounds foreign, like a patient emerging from anesthesia. Go home, Austin. Pack what you need. The temporary restraining order means you have 48 hours to vacate the family residence. 6 months earlier, life had been a masterpiece I'd painted with careful, confident strokes. I stood in my corner office at the San Diego Biotech Park, reviewing quarterly performance metrics while the Pacific Ocean glittered beyond floor-to-ceiling windows. At 50, I commanded respect as both an orthopedic surgeon and medical innovator. Dr. Thompson, your 2 o'clock innovation meeting is ready, my assistant announced. I straightened my custom Armani suit and gathered my presentation materials. The biotech investors were eager to hear about my latest surgical technique, one that would reduce recovery time by 27.4% and generate millions in licensing fees. Harper had texted 3 times that morning about Layla's science competition and Zoey's dance recital. I made a mental note to respond during the 7-minute break between afternoon consultations. Even family communications could be optimized. $2 million in additional funding, I announced to Harper via phone as I walked to my Tesla. The board approved Phase 2 development immediately. That's wonderful, Austin. Her voice carried something I didn't have time to analyze. How did Layla's practice test scores come back? She scored 97%. Excellent performance, though we need to identify and correct the 3% failure rate, I responded, checking my Rolex. I should be home by 7 if traffic patterns hold consistent with Wednesday averages. The La Jolla house represented everything I'd sacrificed to achieve. 6,000 square feet of architectural perfection, featured in Coastal Living magazine. Harper had decorated it beautifully, though I'd insisted on the home automation system that controlled everything with mathematical precision. Daddy. Zoey launched herself at my legs as I entered, her 7-year-old enthusiasm still untempered by disappointment. I checked my phone while patting her head. Hello, Zoey. Did you complete your piano practice? Remember, consistent daily practice correlates with 84% higher proficiency rates. Dinner was precisely timed. Harper served grilled salmon with asparagus, Optimal brain food, according to the latest nutritional studies I'd forwarded her. The girls sat at our custom dining table, but something in the air felt off. "Austin, Pastor Mike called again about that men's retreat," Harper mentioned carefully. "He said they'd love to have you share your expertise on work-life balance." I laughed. I told him I'd consider it during a more convenient fiscal quarter. Church connections can be valuable networking opportunities, but I can't justify a full weekend away from the Innovation Center right now. Layla, 14 and increasingly remote, pushed salmon around her plate. "Dad, why don't we pray anymore? We used to pray before dinner when I was little." The question blindsided me. When had we stopped? I couldn't pinpoint the exact moment prayer had been eliminated from our family algorithm. "We attend church regularly, Layla. That's 400% more religious involvement than most families in our demographic." Later, while organizing my briefcase, a small bookmark fell from my wallet. I picked it up, a faded scripture verse my mother had given me years ago. "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding." I tucked it back quickly. My mother's faith had been a comfort to her, but I'd built my life on more tangible foundations. That night, Zoe appeared in my home office doorway as I worked on research proposals. "Daddy, can you tuck me in?" she asked, clutching the raggedy bear her grandmother had given her. "I'll be there in approximately 10 minutes, Zoe. I need to finish analyzing these quarterly reports. Mrs. Garcia at school says Jesus loves us even when we're not perfect," she said suddenly. "Is that true?" Discomfort flickered through me. Mrs. Garcia seems like a competent educator. Get into bed and I'll be there shortly. But when I finally went to Zoe's room 15 minutes later, she was asleep. I adjusted her blanket and quietly left, already planning to make it up to her by enrolling her in that advanced coding camp she'd mentioned. I had no idea that in 3 months my perfectly controlled life would detonate, that the God I'd relegated to occasional Sunday appearances would be the only one left standing when false allegations tore my children from my arms. The text arrived at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday, 3 weeks before the custody hearing. I was reviewing surgical schedules when my phone buzzed with a message from Dr. James Reeves. "Need to discuss the Peterson case. Urgent. Can you meet tomorrow?" Reeves had been my closest colleague for 3 years. We'd collaborated on research, shared patient consultations, even socialized with our families. If anyone understood the pressures of innovative medicine, it was James. The next morning, Reeves looked haggard, dark circles under his eyes, hands shaking as he stirred his espresso. "Austin, I need your advice. The Peterson surgery, you know, the experimental approach you pioneered? I think we need to discuss the protocols." Thomas Peterson, 73 years old, catastrophic spine fracture. Traditional surgery would have left him paralyzed. My innovative technique had saved his mobility, but it required working outside standard protocols. "What's the concern?" I asked. "The review board is asking questions about procedural authorization, about patient consent forms." Reeves avoided eye contact. "Austin, did you properly document everything?" Over the next hour, Reeves walked me through his concerns: missing signatures on experimental protocols, ambiguous language in consent forms. Each issue seemed minor in isolation, but together they painted a picture of reckless disregard for protocol. "I can fix this," I said. "We'll file supplementary documentation, get retroactive approval from the board." "That's just it, Austin. I don't think we can fix it retroactively. Not with everything else going on in your life." Reeves leaned forward. "But I might have a solution." The solution seemed reasonable. Reeves would take primary responsibility for the Peterson case, claiming he'd been the lead surgeon. His documentation was impeccable, his reputation unblemished. "What about my research?" I asked. "We'll list you as co-author," Reeves assured me. "But Austin, you need to focus on your family situation right now. Let me handle the professional complications." I shook his hand, grateful for his friendship during my darkest hour. 3 weeks later, I received the subpoena. The medical board had received anonymous complaints about my surgical practices. Evidence included recorded phone conversations and text messages, communications I'd had with James Reeves about the Peterson case. I called Reeves immediately. "James, what the hell is happening? They have recordings of our conversations." "Austin, I can explain. Did you record me?" Did you turn those recordings over to the medical board? Silence. Then, I had to protect myself, Austin. Your custody situation, the media attention, I couldn't afford to be associated with your problems. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. Those procedures saved lives, you know that. And now I'm department head, Reeves said quietly. The promotion was announced this morning. Austin, you were always going to be my biggest competition. Your personal life just provided an opportunity. The line went dead. I sat in my empty house, finally understanding the depth of Reeves' calculation. He'd orchestrated everything while positioning himself as the concerned colleague. 3 weeks after losing custody, I sat in my kitchen at 3 a.m., surrounded by spreadsheets that offered no comfort. The numbers were irrefutable. At current burn rate, my savings would be depleted within 8 months. Attorney fees alone had exceeded $47,000. My phone buzzed with a text from Harper. Girls asking about their science fair projects in garage. Can they come get them Saturday? I stared at the message, remembering the half-finished projects I'd been helping them with before the restraining order. Layla's volcano model, engineered for optimal eruption dynamics. Zoey's solar system, with planets positioned according to precise astronomical data. Saturday arrived with cruel punctuality. I waited in my driveway as Harper's sister dropped off Layla and Zoey for their supervised visit. They looked uncomfortable, uncertain, children forced to navigate adult wreckage. "Hi, Dad," Layla said, not meeting my eyes. We walked to the garage where their science fair projects waited under protective plastic sheeting. I'd spent 3 sleepless nights perfecting them. Layla's volcano now featured a computerized eruption sequence. Zoey's solar system included LED lighting and motorized orbital mechanics. "Wow," Zoey whispered, but something in her voice wasn't wonder. It was sadness. "The judges will be impressed by the technical sophistication," I explained. Layla touched the volcano's base gently. "Dad, I wanted to build this myself. It was supposed to be my project. I optimized it for maximum educational impact," I replied, not understanding her distress. "But it was mine," she said quietly. "I wanted to do it wrong. If I was going to do it wrong, I wanted it to be me." The supervised visitation lasted exactly 2 hours. As they prepared to leave, Layla hugged me briefly, a perfunctory gesture that felt like a medical procedure. "I love you both," I said. "We love you too, Dad," Layla replied automatically. Then, after a pause, "But we miss the dad who used to laugh at our jokes instead of calculating their humor efficiency." That night, I wandered through my empty house, calculating loss. In Zoey's room, her stuffed animals sat in perfect alignment on her bed. My arrangement, not hers. She'd always preferred them in a jumbled pile, claiming they liked to snuggle together. I had reorganized them during her last visit, explaining the efficiency of the system. Layla's debate trophies stood in military formation on her bookshelf. I had pushed her toward debate because the outcomes were measurable. But when had I last asked if she enjoyed it? When had I ever simply delighted in who she was rather than what she could achieve? "What have I done?" I whispered to the empty room. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Dr. Thompson, this is Pastor Mike from Community Fellowship. Heard about your situation. Coffee tomorrow? No agenda, just friendship." Pastor Mike didn't look like a man with answers. Mid-40s, slight paunch, wearing a coffee-stained polo shirt. He'd suggested this small café in Hillcrest, far from the biotech park. "Thanks for coming, Austin," he said. "How are you holding up?" "I'm recalibrating," I said. "The current situation requires significant strategic adjustments." Pastor Mike smiled gently. "That's one way to put it. Mind if I ask how you're doing emotionally?" "I'm processing the variables," I replied. "There are multiple factors requiring analysis." "Austin, can I be direct with you?" I nodded. "Harper's been attending our church for about 6 months now. She shared some of what your family's been going through." Pastor Mike leaned forward. "She's not looking for ammunition. She's just hurting. And she's worried about you. She's concerned about my welfare." I leaned back, hiding my shock. "She says you're the smartest man she's ever known, but that you've been trying to solve life like it's a medical procedure. She thinks you're suffocating under the weight of trying to control everything." The observation felt uncomfortably accurate. Control ensures optimal outcomes. Does it? Pastor Mike asked quietly. How's that working for you right now? I searched my memory for recent interactions with Layla and Zoey, teaching moments, educational activities, skill-building exercises. But play? Pure, unstructured, purposeless play? I don't remember, I admitted. Pastor Mike nodded sadly. Harper mentioned that. She said you approach fatherhood like a research project. Data collection, hypothesis testing, outcome measurement. But kids don't need optimization, Austin. They need love. I do love them. The words came out sharper than intended. I believe that, Pastor Mike said, but there's a difference between loving someone and trying to perfect them. One builds relationship, the other builds resentment. How do I fix this? Pastor Mike smiled again. That's exactly the wrong question, Austin. I don't understand. You're still trying to solve this like a problem with a solution. But maybe your old life wasn't working. Maybe this crisis is forcing you to examine what really matters. Are you suggesting I deserve this? I'm suggesting that God sometimes allows our carefully constructed worlds to collapse so we can build something real underneath. God. The variable I'd eliminated from most equations after medical school. I believe in evidence, I said, in measurable outcomes. I've seen too much suffering to believe in a benevolent deity. What if he's actually trying to get your attention right now, through the very circumstances that feel like abandonment? By destroying my career, taking my children, I argued, by showing you that all the things you thought would make you secure, professional success, financial achievement, perfect planning, aren't actually capable of providing the security you need. Pastor Mike handed me his card as we prepared to leave. My cell number's on there. And Austin, there's a men's group that meets Thursday mornings. You'd be welcome. The visitation center smelled like industrial disinfectant and broken dreams. I waited in the lobby, checking my watch every 43 seconds. The court-appointed supervisor, Mrs. Rodriguez, approached with a clipboard. Dr. Thompson, I'll be observing your visit today. She glanced at her notes. Is there anything specific you'd like to discuss before the girls arrive? I consulted my phone where I'd outlined the visit's objectives. I've prepared several educational activities. Mathematics review for Zoey, SAT preparation materials for Layla. Mrs. Rodriguez's expression shifted. Dr. Thompson, this is their time with their father. Perhaps they'd prefer less structured interaction. Before I could respond, Layla and Zoey entered. They looked like refugees from their own childhood. Hi, Dad, Layla said, not quite meeting my eyes. I'd reserved the activity room, which featured child-friendly furniture and educational toys. First, Zoey, I've brought your mathematics workbook. You've fallen behind the recommended pace. Zoey stared at the materials like they might bite her. Dad, can we just talk? Educational activities provide structured conversation opportunities, I replied, opening to page 47. Mrs. Rodriguez intervened gently. Dr. Thompson, what if you let Zoey choose what she'd like to do today? Dad? Layla's voice carried a note I couldn't identify. I don't want to do SAT prep. I want to tell you about school, about my friends, about what kind of stuff. Like how Jessica's parents got divorced, and she's really sad about it. Like how I made the debate team, but I don't think I actually like debating. The admission created a logic error in my parental framework. But you've excelled at debate. Your win-loss ratio is exceptional. I'm good at it because I'm good at arguing and analyzing, Layla said quietly. But I don't enjoy it. It feels mean sometimes. Zoey had wandered to a corner where art supplies were scattered. She began drawing with crayons. Dad, look! I'm drawing our old house! I approached to examine her work, automatically assessing technique. The proportional relationships are incorrect, Zoey. The windows are too large relative to the door frame. Her small hand stopped moving. The joy in her face flickered and died. Mrs. Rodriguez asked to speak with me privately. Doctor, I've supervised hundreds of these visits, she said in the hallway. I've never seen someone work so hard to avoid actually connecting with their children. I'm engaging with them educationally. You're lecturing them, you're correcting them, you're treating them like research subjects instead of daughters who've been traumatized by their parents' separation. I don't know how to do that, I admitted. I don't know how to interact with them without structure, without objectives. When did you last play with them? I mean really play? No learning objectives, just silly, pointless fun? I searched my memory. Every moment had been optimized, every activity educational. I can't remember, I whispered. Your daughters don't need a teacher right now. They need a dad who thinks they're wonderful exactly as they are. We returned to find Zoe showing Layla her completed drawing. The house looked nothing like our actual residence. The proportions were wrong, the colors fantastical, the design architecturally impossible, but both girls were smiling. Dad, look. Zoe held up her artwork proudly. It's our house, but I made it purple because purple houses would be more fun. Every instinct screamed to correct the inaccuracies. Instead, I knelt beside her chair and really looked at the drawing. It's beautiful, Zoe, I said, and meant it. Tell me about the purple. Her face lit up like sunrise. Well, purple is happy but also mysterious. And look, I gave our house wings so it could fly to different places. Flying houses, I repeated, trying to imagine such impossibility. Where would it fly to? To see Grandma and Grandpa? And to Disney World? And maybe to outer space to visit the aliens? For the next hour, we designed the most impractical house in architectural history. No learning objectives, no skill development. Just a father and his daughters playing with impossible possibilities. When visitation ended, both girls hugged me longer than they had in months. This was fun, Dad, Layla whispered. Can we design more impossible stuff next time? Absolutely, I promised. The call came at 6 a.m. on a Thursday. Detective Shelby with the San Diego Police Department needed me for questioning regarding allegations of financial fraud. At the police station, Detective Shelby slid a folder across the metal table. Inside were copies of insurance forms bearing my signature. Claims for procedures I'd performed, but the billing codes were wrong. Multiple procedures billed for single surgeries, equipment charges that exceeded actual costs. I didn't submit these claims, I said. These signatures look like mine, but I don't handle insurance paperwork. According to our investigation, these claims were submitted through your personal access codes, Shelby said. Dr. Reeves is the one who reported the irregularities. He provided evidence that you'd been pressuring him to participate in fraudulent billing schemes. The betrayal was so complete I almost admired its precision. Reeves hadn't simply destroyed my career, he'd created an entirely fabricated criminal case. By afternoon, I was released on my own recognizance but facing multiple felony charges. The local news was already running stories about the fallen surgeon accused of bilking insurance companies. That night, I did something I hadn't done since childhood. I got on my knees beside the hotel bed and prayed, not strategic prayers, but desperate pleas from a man who'd lost everything. God, I don't understand this. I tried to help people, to save lives, and now I'm facing prison for crimes I didn't commit. Jesus, I need help, not to fix my legal problems, but to help me understand what I'm supposed to learn from this destruction. I fell asleep still kneeling, too exhausted to move, too broken to calculate my next strategic move. For the first time in decades, I had no plan, no algorithm, no measurable objectives. And somehow, in that complete surrender, I found a peace that didn't depend on outcomes I could control. Rock bottom has a sound. It's the silence that follows the last domino falling. I discovered this at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday, sitting alone in my bedroom, staring at the criminal indictment that would likely send me to prison. The numbers were irrefutable. 7 felony counts. Potential sentence, 15 to 20 years. At my age, I would emerge from prison as a broken old man with no family, no career, no purpose. God, I whispered to the empty room, I have nothing left. It wasn't a prayer in any traditional sense, it was simply the acknowledgement of complete defeat. But in that moment of absolute darkness, something unexpected happened. The crushing weight of maintaining my perfect facade finally lifted. My phone buzzed. Pastor Mike, saw the news, coffee tomorrow? No judgment, just friendship. The next morning, Pastor Mike was waiting at our usual café, his expression warm despite the newspaper headlines screaming about my alleged crimes. I'm going to prison, I said. Maybe, he replied, but you're not going alone. Pastor Mike opened his Bible to Romans. Paul writes, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him. All things, Austin. Even this. There's nothing good about being framed for crimes I didn't commit. I snapped. What if the good isn't about your circumstances changing? What if it's about you changing? You think I needed to be destroyed to become a better person? I think you needed to discover that you were never in control to begin with, he said. Over the next hour, we talked about grace, unearned favor that wasn't contingent on performance metrics, love that didn't require optimization, acceptance that had nothing to do with achievement. Jesus didn't die for the successful Dr. Thompson or the failed Dr. Thompson, Pastor Mike explained. He died for Austin the human being, flawed and finite and completely loved. I don't know how to receive that, I admitted. I've spent my entire life earning approval through performance. That's why grace is called grace. It can't be earned. It can only be received, he explained. That evening I called Harper. Austin? Her voice was cautious but not hostile. I wanted you to know that I didn't commit those crimes. I know you have no reason to believe me, but I needed to say it. I believe you, she said quietly. I know your faults, Austin, but dishonesty isn't one of them. Her unexpected trust nearly broke me. Harper, I'm sorry, not just for the legal mess, but for everything, for treating you like a business partner instead of a wife, for measuring our children's worth through their achievements. Austin, what happened? You sound different. I'm learning that I don't have to have everything figured out, I said. I'm learning that maybe it's okay to be broken. The girls miss you, Harper said softly. Not the father who corrected their homework. They miss the dad who used to read them bedtime stories without making them educational experiences. I miss that dad too, I whispered. Maybe all of this is forcing us to remember what actually matters, she said. The verdict was delivered on a Thursday morning. I sat beside my court-appointed attorney, watching the jury foreman stand. We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty on all charges. The evidence of my innocence had finally surfaced. Digital forensics proving that James Reeves had used my access codes, testimony from a hospital IT specialist who discovered the security breach. Justice served. Reeves was in custody pending trial. But as I walked out of the courthouse, I realized something profound. My acquittal changed nothing about what mattered most. Professionally, I was tainted. No major facility would hire me, even though I'd been cleared. 3 weeks later, I was working at a free clinic in Hillcrest, volunteering my services to patients who couldn't afford traditional medical care. No salary, no prestige, no cutting-edge surgical suites. Just me, basic equipment, and people who needed healing. Mrs. Garcia brought her 8-year-old grandson in for a broken arm. She recognized me from the news coverage but said nothing about my legal troubles. She simply thanked me for setting the bone and asked if she could pray for me. You pray for me? I asked, surprised. You help my Louise? She said in careful English. God see good heart. God use you. That evening, Harper called. We'd been talking regularly since the trial ended, cautious conversations about co-parenting and cautious hope about reconciliation. The girls want to know if you'll come to Zoe's school play next week, she said. Of course. What's she performing? It's about community helpers. She's playing a doctor who helps people for free. The school auditorium was packed. When Zoe appeared on stage in a makeshift white coat, my heart swelled with pride that had nothing to do with performance metrics. When people are hurt and can't afford a doctor, she recited, some doctors help them anyway because that's what love looks like. After the play, both girls ran to me with uninhibited affection. Layla, now 15 and increasingly wise, hugged me tightly. Dad, I'm glad you're not the old you anymore, she whispered. What do you mean? The old you would have analyzed my performance and suggested improvements. The new you just looks happy to see me. 6 months later, Harper and I sat in marriage counseling together, not to optimize our relationship efficiency, but with the vulnerable admission that we needed help. I'm still learning how to love without measuring, I admitted to the counselor. Some days I barely hold on, but Jesus holds me. Harper reached for my hand. I see the difference. The court eventually granted me shared custody. The first night Layla and Zoey stayed at my small house, I found Layla on the patio, looking at the stars. Dad, are you still obsessed with being perfect? She asked. I sat beside her. I'm learning that perfect love is different than perfect performance. I failed at one, but I'm receiving the other. What does that mean? It means I'm learning to love you girls without trying to fix you. And I'm learning that Jesus loves me without requiring me to be successful. Layla leaned against my shoulder. I like this version of Dad better. A year later, Harper and I renewed our vows in Pastor Mike's small church. Not because everything was perfect, it wasn't, but because we were learning that love is a choice made daily, sometimes hourly. Today, I still work part-time at the free clinic. Our family attends Pastor Mike's church together. I still struggle with the urge to control, to measure, to optimize. Old habits die hard. But I'm learning a new definition of success, not holding everything together, but being held by a love that never fails, even when I do. Perfect love is driving out fear, one surrendered day at a time. And sometimes, in the quiet moments when Zoe shows me another impossible drawing or Layla shares a dream that can't be quantified, I remember what grace looks like. Not a formula to be solved, but a gift to be received over and over again.